Hey Disney family, so I have wanted to shoot this video for 2 months. How long have I known? I've known 4 months. I've known since November, and I, you think that you could just like gloss over things and you'd be like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. But there's gonna come a point where I do birth this baby and you guys are gonna be like, are we gonna see your daughter? Like, will you show us your daughter? So let's start from the beginning. You guys knew back when I announced my pregnancy that the beginning was really tough. I had some bleeding, thought I was miscarrying a couple of times. I was really sick. I was throwing up like 30 times a day, and I was hospitalized a couple of times because of it. I was on bed rest 2 times during just my first trimester. And during this time, I went to Disney once at 11 weeks, and I was off bed rest at that time. I wasn't just like disobeying my doctor's orders. I listened very heavily to my doctors, but I was always high risk. So I started progesterone shots. There's something called progesterone. And if you had a baby that was born preterm in a previous pregnancy, they'll give you progesterone shots starting at 16 weeks. So 16 weeks, I actually started to feel better. I wasn't as nauseous. I wasn't throwing up anymore. I did get some good medications that helped. I took something called, I think it's called Diclegis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but B6 and Unisom. And it helped with it at least helped me to not throw up 30 times a day. I was still really sick. I lost a lot of weight in the beginning. But about 16 weeks, when I started my progesterone shots, I started feeling better. We went to Disney in November at 18 weeks. And the day I got back from Disney, the very next day, I had what is typically a really fun scan. It's an anatomy scan where you find out if you're having a boy or a girl. We knew we were having a girl at that point. I had gotten the blood test at like 11 weeks, so we knew we were having a girl. But you go in for confirmation, you go in for the growth scan. It's fun because the baby looks like a baby and it's not like a tiny little tadpole anymore. I mean, it starts to look like that around 12 weeks, but this was so exciting. Now, my wife could not attend with me. She was going to work, and it was fine because I had been going to a lot of these doctor appointments alone. And so I took my daughter, I took Ruthie, and we went to our scan, and I was just waiting and just waiting for the ultrasound tech to call me in. She did, and I went in. And they started their growth scan, and we saw her, and she's so cute, and little squiggles, and they squiggle around and wiggle around. And now, when my first daughter's growth scan, she had a cyst in her brain. It wasn't a big deal. It can be a marker for a genetic disease. So we had done all the genetic testing for both my first child, Ruthie, and then also Rosie. And so we do that so that if there are some soft markers, like a cyst in the brain, for example, we know that it's probably not genetically tied because all of our genetic testing had come back normal. So we had done all the genetic testing for this little girl, and so we're looking, brain looks fine, arms look fine, she's growing great, and then they got to her heart. And the ultrasound tech was taking a long time on her heart, and I wasn't sure what's going on. And I'm the kind of person that I do not freak out. I do not worry until a doctor or whoever tells me that I should be worrying. So the ultrasound tech looked at me and she said, you know what, I can't really get a great view of her heart. I'm gonna call the doctor in to see if they could get a better view, which is totally true. Rosie has been sunny side up this entire time, and it's hard to see her heart in general. I have a hard time measuring stuff because the way that she moves, she just is always kind of hiding. So my high risk doctor came in, and I was already high risk. And she started looking at her heart, and she looked at me and said, "There's something wrong with your baby's heart." And I lost it. And I think that you can probably imagine, no, I wasn't gonna cry in this. But I think as a parent in general, you constantly worry about your kids. And you start worrying literally from the day you get pregnant, you will start worrying about your children. It's just the way it is. It's just who you are as a parent. So I immediately started crying. And at first, the doctor had thought it was something called truncus. I can't tell you a whole lot about truncus. It's something that you can probably Wikipedia. We just looked at it briefly, but it's tied directly to a genetic disorder called Wdwgirl disease. And so we didn't have any markers for any sort of genetic abnormalities in our child. And so they couldn't quite see the 4 chambers of the heart, and they thought there was just, I think truncus is just like one artery coming out. They couldn't get a good view of her. So anyway, I called Leanne and I said, "There's something wrong with our baby's heart. I don't know what it is." They're sending us over to UCLA for an echo, which is a fetal echo, which means that the doctor looks at the baby's heart more closely, and they had scheduled us in an hour. So Leanne left work. She had just pulled into the parking garage at her law firm, and she left and came right over. And y'all, this is a hard story to tell because it brings me back to like a really rough day. Probably top 5 hardest days of my life. So anyway, they sent us over to UCLA. They got us in with a great pediatric cardiologist, and he started the echo. And at the end, it took about, I don't know, it takes an hour. Echoes are long. They measure every single vessel and chamber, and they look for any other abnormalities in the baby's heart. And so it takes a while, especially since she was so little. They were trying to figure out what was going on. So after he finished the echo, he brought us into a room and he said, "Your baby has something called transposition of the great arteries." And that means that her pulmonary valve and her aortic valve are flipped so that the mixing of the blood does not happen. Basically, the oxygenated blood stays continuing through the lungs, and the non-oxygenated blood continues to flow throughout the body. Obviously, this is something that a person cannot live with long term. They do have a surgery called the arterial switch, which she is going to be having, where they switch her aortic valve and pulmonary valve. And that means that after Rosie is born, she is going to have open heart surgery. She also has VSD, which is a hole in her heart in the 2 bottom chambers, and it's actually a good thing for babies that have TGA because it allows for mixing of the blood. So they will fix that hole when they do her open heart surgery. Now, the one thing they were worried about was something called pulmonary stenosis, which is a narrowing in her pulmonary valve. She does not have that. Right now, she just has some crowding, but her valve is really well developed. And because it's going to become her aortic valve, it's actually within the normal realm of how big or how narrow an aortic valve would be. Obviously, this is overwhelming for any parent, I think, when you hear that there's something wrong with your baby. You think your baby's perfect and you think that, you know, everything's okay. And, you know, I think that there's a huge piece of this that was a big learning experience of what people say to you. A lot of people will apologize, and I'm not sorry for Rosie's existence. I'm not sorry for her heart defect. I'm not sorry because She's not going to be who she is without this. And so I think just like any parent that is given any sort of challenge, and we just happen to know what our challenges are going to be for her early on. Now, from the arterial switch operation is a fairly new operation. It started really becoming more common practice in the early 90s, like late 80s, early 90s. So it's still a fairly new practice, and even the people who have had their arterial switch done then are still in just their late 20s, early 30s. But what they're able to do is create an abnormal heart into a normal heart. And these people who have transposition of the great arteries are living well into their 50s and 60s now because of different procedures, Rastelli and mustard procedure. Even in the 60s and 70s, they've created procedures that are life-saving. So the outcomes are really good. They're really, really good. And her outcomes look really good. I mean, she's never going to have a normal heart, ever. She's going to have a congenital heart defect, a major congenital heart defect her entire life. And 1 in 100 babies are actually born with some sort of congenital heart defect. Now, many of them are minor, and this is a major heart defect. This is actually the second most common heart defect major heart defect in the world. So the first is tetralogy of Fallot, and you've probably heard of that because Jimmy Fallon's son, that's what he was born with. Shaun White was also born with that, but our daughter was born with the second most common, so it's 3 in 10,000 babies. Now, obviously, 3 in 10,000 is less than a 1% chance of getting it, and this particular heart defect is also not tied to a genetic defect. And that's the other thing is, when the heart is developing in weeks 5 through 8, they do all these flips and turns to kind of create the valves and the arteries and the different chambers. Well, the final turn is the flip of the pulmonary and the aortic valve, and her heart did not do the final turn. They do not know why, but that is just what it is for our daughter. She did not have the final turn in her heart. So after Rosie is born, she will be delivered in an OR because just for safety precautions. I will still have hopefully just a normal delivery. I'm not having a C-section or anything. At least that's not what's planned unless I need to. Her heart otherwise has a very normal heartbeat. It's not something that you would be able to catch necessarily on a screen unless you have a really trained eye, because the 4 chambers are there and everything looks normal otherwise. So when she's born, I will probably just get a few seconds to maybe a few minutes with her before they take her off to begin her somewhat long road in her newborn life. So they'll take her and they will evaluate her. They will start something called prostaglandins, which will keep a hole open that every newborn has to keep a way to mix the blood. And then because she already has the hole in her heart in the bottom 2 parts of her chamber, hopefully those 2 will be good enough for mixing oxygen and making sure that her oxygen levels are okay. And if not, they will do something that's a balloon cath, where they will create another hole in the top half of her heart to keep a 3rd way of mixing. They'd like to have 2 out of 3. She has 2 out of 3, so if they don't have to do the balloon cath, they won't. So after that, they will just kind of allow her to recover from childbirth, and 3 to 6 days after her birth, she will have her first and hopefully only open heart surgery. Now that is really scary as a parent. I think any parent can tell you that. knowing that your child is going to be in pain or having some sort of difficulty, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever it may be. It's really hard to knowingly walk into that. See guys, this is why I didn't talk about this before. So, it's tough. I think it's just tough to be the parent of a child whose life is going to be a little more difficult. So I think you should probably know why I'm in Michigan. We decided to have our baby here because, number one, my parents are out here to give us support for Ruthie when we're in the hospital. And also, the Children's Hospital out here is number 3 in the country for pediatric cardiology. So we decided pretty early on that this was the right choice for us, for our family. We are going back to LA. My wife's job is in LA, so we need to live in LA. And so we knew that this was probably the easiest decision, was coming out here and being out here and having Rosie out here. But I think I mentioned I was in the hospital 2 weeks ago because I went into labor early and I'm having changes, which is not good but having a premature baby will cause extra complications to not just her heart, but just things that come along with having premature babies. So luckily I'm 34 weeks tomorrow, or by the time the video goes up, I'll be 34 weeks today. And that is a huge milestone, especially for her and for me. And I'm finding the added stress of trying to keep a baby in when they have other health issues has been really, really hard. And it was stressful the first time trying to keep my first daughter in. And I thought because we had done all these precautions and I was getting these giant intramuscular shots every week that I was gonna hopefully be able to avoid this, and I didn't. Now I got like 2 weeks further with Rosie than I did with Ruthie, so I guess it bought me 2 weeks, and you know, I hope I make it to 36 or beyond. You know, what we really want is a full-term baby, and it's really important for Rosie and her health that she's big enough and healthy enough and strong enough for a huge surgery like the one she's gonna have, one that, you know, hopefully that I will never encounter in my life, and that my wife will never encounter, and that Ruthie and that most people never have to encounter some sort of open heart surgery. So they give me steroid shots during my hospital stay to mature her lungs, and so she will be good until she's born. And hopefully we will get past, you know, 37 weeks and I'll get a full-term baby out of this, because really what's most important is that, obviously, other than her heart, we want a healthy, big baby. Now, the other thing I was gonna say was, I don't think people realize, and I know that people are trying to just be kind when they say things like this, and this has been said to me a few times since I've known about her diagnosis. You know, oh, are you having a boy or a girl? And I'm like, oh, I'm having another little girl. I'm really excited. And that is a piece I'm really excited about. I'm excited. I have a sister. I'm really close to my sister. You guys have met her in my vlogs, or you've met her at least in one of my videos. And having a sister has been amazing. And my wife also has a sister who she's very, very close with. And the sister bond is really cool. And like, it's one of the things that we are excited about. You know, it's something that we do get to celebrate in this pregnancy, because we haven't been able to celebrate a lot. And it's been, I mean, I say tough, when I say tough pregnancy, it's literally the understatement of the year. It was a really hard pregnancy. I just feel like I got hit left and right with bad news after bad news. And the one thing we did get to celebrate was the fact that our daughter is going to have a sister, and that our other daughter is going to have a sister, and they're going to be sisters, and they're going to get to have that relationship. And so when people look at me and say, oh, are you having a boy or a girl? I'm like, oh, I'm having a girl. And this is like something that I'm so excited about. They're like, oh, that's great. But I mean, it really doesn't matter as long as it's a healthy baby. And you know what? I'm not having a healthy baby. And I think that people should think that, like, not every pregnancy is a healthy pregnancy. And I also shouldn't have to share and spill my personal life with the cashier at Trader Joe's that, oh no, actually my baby is not healthy. Like, what do you say to that? How do you tell people that? And we've had this said to us several times when, like, just stop. If you're gonna ask about someone's pregnancy, when you do whatever, or is it a boy or a girl, and they're like, oh, we don't know, we're waiting until the end. Oh, what a fun surprise, should be the answer. If you're having a girl, oh, girls are so much fun. If you're having a boy, oh, boys are so much fun. And just end it there. Don't talk about a healthy pregnancy, because you know what? It's a huge trigger for a lot of people. And I'm not having a healthy pregnancy. I don't have a healthy baby. My baby is going to have a huge surgery after she's born, a life-saving surgery after she's born. I don't mean to say this negatively. I'm really a positive person, but I think it's something that we as humans need to be more aware of and more gentle about. So I realize this is not the happiest of happy videos. My channel is not going to turn into a TGA channel or a TGA awareness channel. I just wanted to let you guys know, because I will not be posting about Rosie right away. I will let you guys know when she's born and when she's home and healthy and happy and with us. I will absolutely be so excited to share everything with you. But until then, I wanted to let you guys know what's going on, why my videos have been sporadic. I'm on bed rest, and why I'm just a little bit more sad than usual, because the reality is setting in that my baby will be here soon, and I will have a long, challenging road ahead of us. Ahead of us. We have a long, challenging road ahead of us, and just be gentle and be kind and be good, and I will talk to you guys real soon. Bye.